Hello, friends. It's one of your favorite brothers, Phil, tuning in for your weekly word in the room. This is the fourth episode that I'm doing now, and the past 48 hours have been pretty crazy. Past 36 hours, probably even. These are strange times we're living in. The world feels like it's very much at war. But as I made a post about yesterday, I feel like actually it reinforces my conviction that I've had in the space for many years now. I think that we've seen in blockchain and in crypto two sides of the argument, right? And I think I'll just spend today talking about that just very quickly. Because I made a post yesterday about how times like these actually reinforce the need for blockchains, and also in particular this idea that XRP has had for a very, very long time about the need for a neutral bridge currency. And I think we've seen David Schwartz say that. I think one of the times that I was just reflecting on yesterday was at XRP Ledger Apex, XRPL Apex in Singapore this summer. And of course, with stablecoins having grown so much, the elephant in the room was, well, where does that leave XRP as a bridge currency? Where does that leave the XRP bridge currency? And I think that the current geopolitical conflict, really proves the point. And that's what I've been thinking just so much about over the past day or so. So just a quick refresh. At the beginning of crypto, stablecoins didn't exist, right? They weren't really a thing. And that was, of course, the genesis of around when all of these cryptos were being created. Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, Litecoin, all these different cryptocurrencies. And of course, one of the early things that the founding team and the co-creators of the XRP ledger realized was actually we need a way for people to move between different currencies. We need a way for people to be able to move between, let's say, the Japanese yen into, I don't know, pick another currency, I don't know. There's so many different currencies. Let's say the peso, right? The peso. And that was really one of the key core parts of XRP being used as bridge currency to move between. For anybody who doesn't understand this concept of the bridge currency, basically it's that if you had to have an individual pair between every single one of these currencies that existed, you would need to have so many different pairs, and it would really, really affect the liquidity, of course. Whereas if you have a bridge currency, and with auto-bridging, pathfinding, you can then have a very, very neat route where XRP sits in the middle of all of these different ones, which means that you don't need to have necessarily, I don't know, let's say there's these currencies with these tiny little countries where there's really not going to be any liquidity, right? You don't need to have a pair between that currency and every single other one in the world, right, in order to have an efficient swap. You can route through XRP. You can route through individual currencies as well directly. But ultimately, if there's not enough liquidity, it can go straight through XRP. And it's one of the really, really cool things that's actually baked directly into the XRP ledger. Check it out more in the EasyA app if you haven't had a chance to yet. Really, really cool concept, and it's actually been implemented. But then flash forward a couple of years, we're talking about couple of years on from the genesis of all these cryptos, so around the 2013 era. Let's flash forward maybe a couple of years, even up to maybe I would say pretty much modern day. You had these stable coins start to come out, and a lot of the narrative recently has been stable coins have removed the need for XRP as a bridge currency, right? And I think there's a number of reasons why that's wrong, but I think that over the past 24 hours we've seen why actually the need for XRP as a neutral bridge currency is actually so important. So flash forwards to what the other people were saying over the past couple of years, stablecoins have literally grown massively. I mean, the rate at which stablecoins have grown has been like exponential. Like you look at the charts for USDC, for example. Even if you look at RLUSD as well, stablecoins have just grown extremely rapidly. That's obviously one of the reasons why Ripple launched RLUSD, the stablecoin. But where did that leave us, right? And I think a lot of people were thinking, oh, actually, everybody's just going to use US dollar denominated stablecoins. That's just going to be the de facto route, and all the liquidity is going to be based around these stablecoins. Well, here's the thing with that. Look at the rest of the world. I think that the West is pretty happy to use these dollar-denominated stablecoins. But in a world that's increasingly fractured, think about the rest. Think about the rest of the world. Who is going to use a US dollar stablecoin when there's, of course, just a lot of fractures in the world, when there's a lot of geopolitical tension, when not everybody wants to be transacting in the US dollar, right? Or US dollar denominated stablecoins, you know? And I'm not just talking about arch nemesis. I'm talking about also just countries that want something a little bit more neutral, right? And I think that this time, of course, with war sort of breaking out and potentially other geopolitical conflicts starting around the world, I think that this really emphasizes the need for something which is neutral, right? I think that, look, stablecoins, they're not going anywhere. I don't think they are. I think that Ripple made a great decision launching RLUSD. I think that it taps into an existing demand that a lot of people have. A lot of people do want access to the US dollar, but can't otherwise get access to it because they don't have a US bank account. Absolutely. Give them a stablecoin. But that does not in any way diminish the need for a neutral bridge currency. There needs to be something sitting in the middle which isn't affiliated with a particular government. We need something which isn't affiliated with a particular set of ideologies. It's not infused with all of that baggage, right? It's something neutral. It's something which has liquidity, and something which was designed for this precise use case. And if you really think about where that all begins, really, you've got to look at the XRP ledger. You've got to look under the hood at what this asset that sits on it, the native asset, does, and what the ledger actually does. Everything that was built around this, it's just absolutely fascinating. So that's my word in the room. I just want to keep it actually very, very simple. It's what I've been thinking so much about over the past day or so, just coming back to these original tenets. And it emphasizes, it reinforces why we're here and what this ecosystem is about. And I think, obviously I made the point. If World War III breaks out, that just is going to really, really show what this was all made for. But even if it doesn't, right? I think we're ready at this stage right now where the world is realizing that actually we need something a little bit more neutral. Or at least a lot of the world will want something more neutral. And if you look at the flows of all of these currencies, they are absolutely massive. All it takes is a little bit of that spark. And I think that we've already seen that. I think we've already seen that spark start to ignite. I think that we're seeing that countries are going to start moving away from just the US dollar. We've already seen that. We've already seen, for example, countries starting to transact in the renminbi, the Chinese yuan, right? And I think that, look, it's going to be hard for countries to just want to use one of those particular currencies. I think that also there's a certain amount of trust that comes baked into that, right? And a lot of the countries that have so far adopted those currencies, right, they do it because they can't necessarily transact in the dollar. I think they'd love to transact in the dollar. But I think that we're starting to see that actually, over the next coming years, coming decades, that they'll want something a little bit more neutral. That didn't used to exist before. There wasn't a system where you could actually use this sort of, just imagine it. It's so futuristic, right? Imagine there's something that's not a dollar, but allows you to transact between any different currency in the world with insanely great liquidity, right? How do you do that without the US dollar? That's what the US dollar served. Anyway, I could go on about this for a long time, but that's my message in the word of the room. That's what I've been thinking about. A lot of exciting stuff coming. And I said yesterday as well, this just makes me so much more bullish. There's short-term market turmoil. Of course there is. But look, the fundamentals have never been stronger. And I think that actually these events, different to how they affect other industries. Other industries, look, yes, short-term market turmoil, but they actually do get affected in sometimes a negative way, right? Trade gets affected. All these things get affected. This is not just about affecting it, not really only having a short-term impact, but it's actually having an acceleration. It's about providing an accelerative impact. You can think about how a lot of things sped up during COVID, right? For a lot of industries, it provided a short-term market turmoil, but for the ones that really, really were positioned well, for the ones that really were positioned into this new future, it just accelerated them. Look at video conferencing. Look at everybody who is now using Zoom, Google Meet, pretty much you name it. Everybody's using video calls. Do you remember just before COVID? People were just phoning each other up. The number of video calls I went on was few and far between, but now everybody's getting on a video call. And I think that this is a similar sort of thing that what we're going to see in crypto, right? It's providing that accelerant, which is going to bring the whole world onto new financial rails. So that's my word in the room. Stay safe, everyone. These are tumultuous times that we live in. So stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next word in the room.